Hello, everyone, and welcome to Global Outlook. I'm Mary Sitt. This year-long pandemic has taken its toll on people, especially on mental health. Domestic violence has increased, alcoholic consumption has gone up, and surveys show that young people are reporting more depression. HCC offers free counseling to all of its students. Licensed professional counselors are there to help people with emotional issues. Here to tell us more is Patrick Nguyen. He is the lead counselor at HCC's Southeast Campus. Thank you so much for being with us, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Mary, for having me today.
Tell me, what are some of the mental health effects of this pandemic?
If somebody had mental health issues prior to the pandemic, it is definitely amplified during the pandemic. Some of the common things that we're seeing are feelings of anger, fear, sadness, worry, frustration. It could be a change of appetite or issues with concentration, difficulty sleeping, maybe physical reactions like headache, body pains, worsening chronic health issues, or worsening mental health issues.
Wow, that's a long list of things that can happen and that have been happening. So you're seeing these things in the students you counsel, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. We're seeing a lot of loneliness also, and just anxiousness, anxiety. They don't have an outlet to share their frustration. They feel cooped up. It's very similar to prison populations.
Wow.
Surprisingly, we're trying to work with our students to alleviate some of those issues.
And hopefully with the vaccinations coming and rolling out pretty smoothly, more students will get vaccinated, because anybody at the age 16 and above can now get vaccinated in Texas. And maybe that will help the feeling of being so isolated. They can sort of go out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Of course, wearing their mask, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the CDC recommendations is to just get vaccinated. That's definitely going to help you with mental health in the same light as your physical health.
Yes, and I remember when I got vaccinated, it was such a huge feeling of relief. Like, wow, I feel like there's a layer of protection and it's not so scary anymore. So, with students, especially with international students who are far away from home, I'm sure the feeling of isolation and loneliness, those feelings are even more intensified. So how do you tell them how they can cope? I mean, they FaceTime their family, or what can they do?
FaceTiming is one avenue. The most important thing is to get connected. We are social beings, and we need to be connected with other people. How we connect in the digital age and during the pandemic is very different. We connect virtually. We connect through Zoom. We connect through chat, Facebook. We connect through phone calls, FaceTime, texting, whatever it is. But we have to make a conscious effort to connect to other people. If we don't make that conscious effort, it becomes a lot more isolating and a lot more difficult to get us out of this mental health crises.
And also, it's good probably to make like little appointments, regular things where you, instead of just saying, oh, I don't feel like it because I'm too depressed, just make yourself, today is Friday. This is when I call mom, or when I call my best friend over here, or something, right? Do regular reaching out.
Definitely. And counselors are also available. All of our counselors are licensed therapists. We're either licensed professional counselors, licensed marriage and family therapists, licensed social workers, or licensed psychologists. And we're here to help students open up and provide that sort of a safe space so that they can explore some of these emotions and feelings. It's kind of interesting because I had a student the other day, and she was a first generation student who was taking classes, and she said, wasn't really sure what I was going to talk to you about today, but I'm really glad that I talked to you, because you're the first person that I talked to you this entire day.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have to make those conscious efforts to connect again. I know it's super easy when we're in class and we can physically say, hey, how's it going? How'd you do on the test? But maybe we have to do that also. And students should do that more often when they're doing an online class.
Patrick, what's the role of exercise and just going out for a walk in nature? Tell me about that. How does that affect your mental health?
Yeah, definitely. The mind and body is closely related. The mind is pumping out a lot of different hormones at any given time. Exercise will be from a very biological standpoint. Exercise releases dopamine, which counteracts the effect of depression and anxiousness, anxiety, things like that. Moving about exercise, walking, eating correctly, all helps with that release of dopamine.
What kind of problems have you been seeing with students like before the pandemic? And then you said earlier that those problems are just exacerbated, right? Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. So in my part of HCC, which is the Southeast campus, and for a lot of students across the district, we saw a lot of students who had issues with dealing with responsibilities. They had a lot of responsibilities, and they didn't have a lot of time to work on all of the responsibilities. They had responsibilities to their family, to their work, to their bringing in money, and they didn't have the responsibilities, and they also had the responsibilities of their studies. So they had definitely a balance issue and a little bit of a anxiousness with trying to balance everything. So during the pandemic, with unemployment so high, they feel like they have to work even more to bring home more money to support the family. So we're seeing a lot of those types of issues, dealing with anxiousness, anxiety, and prioritizing and working with responsibilities.
And probably it's difficult to study at home and take classes at home when you got kids at home, because a lot of your students are adults with families, right? They're not just like 18-year-olds with mom and dad supporting them. They're actually supporting themselves. So they have to juggle that. And then they have their kids who are also learning from home. So I guess that's been an issue too, of how to separate those segments.
Definitely. And the good thing about HCC right now is that a lot of our campuses are open. So if students want to kind of find a quiet place to come on campus and set up their laptop or set up on a computer lab, they're more than welcome to come on campus and study. We're open until about 6:30 every single day, so Monday through Thursday, and then Friday until 5 o'clock. So if students need a quiet place to study, to remove themselves from this environment that is very distracting, and it can be distracting, especially when you have HISD siblings still in remote learning, and you have parents also doing remote work.
Right.
It can be very difficult.
So you've actually you were instrumental in turning counseling into making it go into the digital world by online appointments. Tell me about that.
Some of our campuses have online appointment booking systems. So whenever you outreach to a counselor would ask you, what sort of issues are you looking to come in and talk to the counselor about. Counselors were a little bit different from advisors. Counselors, we deal with mental health issues, anxiety, depression, suicide, things like that. Advisors, they're going to deal with what classes you need to take, where your degree plan is, things like that. So once we kind of figure out that you're here for counseling, we'll send you a link, and you just click that link, and then you choose the time, day, and location, or the time, day, and counselor that you'd like to make an appointment with.
And they do this all like remotely, right? They just stay wherever they
do
are.
it remotely, and once you submit the appointment request, you get a text message reminder, and you also get an email with the link for the meeting held through Microsoft Teams. So it's a virtual meeting, similar to this, like Zoom, but we use Microsoft Teams, or we can use WebEx to connect with you. And
once a student starts counseling, is it a short-term intervention, like 3 sessions and done, or what?
Good question. So it's really going to depend on the student or the client. Some clients need, counseling sessions every 2 or 3 weeks for the entire semester. Some clients 2 or 3 sessions and they're done. But we try to do what's called brief counseling therapy, which is within 1 semester, because you do have to be a registered student to have counseling services. Okay. So when we try to finish counseling services within 1 semester.
Very good. Thank you so much, Patrick Nguyen, for being with us. So
Thank
students
you so
need to reach out, go online if you need help. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we'll meet a talented young filmmaker from Brazil who's earning another credential right here at HCC. Stay with us.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed. about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
The faculty at HCC represents the best of the city. They're committed to getting our students to their goals. HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Our next guest is a recent graduate of HCC who was named Student of the Year from 2019 to 2020. Caio de Aragon Cruz is the co-host of a show called the HCC TV Student Lounge, a show by students and for students. He's back at HCC studying for a certificate in digital communications. Thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, it's so good to be back. I just love your show.
Thank you. I love having you on. So tell me, what is this new certificate of digital communications that you're studying for now?
I got studying filmmaking and I just love studying, especially HCC. I got really good resources, especially when it comes to equipment. So I decided to give it a try for photography. Unfortunately, the pandemic things was a little bit different, but we ended up being even able to use the lab, which we have a studio at the A-Leaf campus. So we have all the equipment and we have like nice backgrounds, really cool lighting. Actually, the first weeks of the semester, they let us take the lights home, which is something that they never done before. But at the time, they want us to learn how to use them. So they're like, okay, this is the first time we're doing this, but let's see how it works. And it went pretty well. You know, I ended up using my girlfriend as the model for a lot of the shots, but I also used it myself. You can see some of those. And I also took Photoshop class. That's where I learned how to do some really, really cool things. Removing background, adding background, making myself levitating. And it was just amazing. And I'm so glad I finally learned how to do that.
We have a demo clip of you did of your filmmaking. It's of a young couple in love. Tell me a little bit of the concept behind that.
This demo, it's actually a conjunction of all the projects that I did at HCC and some outside things too.
Okay.
So actually the couple actually shot in LA with a project that I work with my friend. We're not getting paid anything like that, but it was just at the time that I was learning how to use equipment, the gimbal, which is the stabilizer to keep the shot steady. Yeah, and I just love filmmaking, but I also wanted to give it a try to photography because filmmaking and photography are pretty similar. I would say that, you know, in order to know filmmaking, you gotta know photography. But there's a lot of things in photography that I thought I knew. And once I got to HCC and started learning, I was like, okay, I don't know as much as I thought I knew.
So your photography, I noticed that you had some shots of levitation where they're just like, almost like they're floating in the air. Tell me how that concept fascinated you. Why did you choose levitation to focus on? And how did you do those tricks?
So actually we did, it's a Photoshop class, advanced Photoshop. And that's one of the things that we learned. So that was a class assignment that I need to remove the background. So it's not as hard as it looks. So pretty much you need to take a photo first sitting on a bench. That's what I did. And then you remove the bench and then you take another shot where you're, you know, just the background empty. So you blend those two shots and you remove the bench and it looks like I'm levitating.
That's cool. It's a lot of fun too. You're studying photography now. And what are you learning differently that you didn't learn in filmmaking? And what are you trying to bring to your photography now?
One of the things that I really enjoy learning was how to use the strobes, which are those cool, you know, it's the lighting from photography, which is those big flashes that are really strong. So I started using gel. So I had a white wall, which I was actually able to transform the color just by adding a gel to the strobe. And besides that, there's also the perspective, how you take photos. And photos is like, it's a still thing. So you need to be, you know, more careful because once you have the shot, that's it. You know, one video, you can just be recording the whole time. So I think you need to be more careful with the frame when it comes to photography, you know. And at the same time, you have a little bit more time than video because also video, just things happen and I'm like, okay, I missed that, you know. And if you're taking photos of, for example, landscape, you don't really have, you know, you can take 10 hours if you want, you know, because the landscape is going to stay there the way it is.
Right. And then when you're done with that photograph, that's it. The viewer only see that one shot, that one moment in time that you've captured and created. So it becomes very significant in that sense, right? So let's talk about, you had a wonderful, wonderful achievement, and that is Student of the Year. You're an international student, you're from Brazil, so you're away from home, your family's over there, and of course we're all reading the news about the pandemic in Brazil. It's just really pretty awful now. With all that stress, worrying about your family, being here all by yourself, you're young. How did you cope, and how did you become Student of the Year?
So, well, thanks God, at the time this happened was actually not even with the pandemic, was because they choose during 2019. So we didn't know that all this was going to happen, but right. I think that was so far, I think, my biggest accomplishment. I work really hard for the student project. The professors, they noticed that, and I think that's a misconception for a lot of the students. They think just because it's a school project or because they're not getting paid, they don't need to give their best, and that's where they're wrong. And honestly, a lot of the opportunity, including to be at HCCTV, came because I was able to do student projects, and I was able to show to my professors how much work I was putting into it, and they saw my potential. So with that, I start accomplishing more and more in life. So that's the lesson, give always your best in school, because at some point you're going to get paid for that.
Okay, so Caio, you are a very enthusiastic, go-getter kind of person. You can see that in the first 5 seconds of meeting you. But what advice would you give other students, especially students who are far away from home, of how they can be successful at HCC?
Let's say first with the pandemic, I think, you're talking earlier, like try to be in contact with your family. I think this is really important. I struggled a lot with that because, I was locked down at home. Luckily, I have my girlfriend, so she gave me a lot of moral support, and she was by my side. So that makes things different. But I think one thing the internationals should have, it's because we were born in a different country that most likely, like me, doesn't have the opportunities that we have in the USA. So that's already a big advantage, because you feel more anger. You're like, I can do it. If I came all the way from my country and I'm here, I can do it. So I think this is a really incentive to do people. And people that are not from a different country, they can still learn from those international students. Just think about it, research, see how's the quality of life in different countries, and then you're gonna realize how much you have in here. And you gotta change your mentality, give your best always.
That's great advice for those of us that are from this country too, to realize the opportunities we have here and to take advantage of it and work hard to achieve our goals. Thank you so much for being with us. I know we're gonna be going to your movies and look at your photo exhibits, maybe at MFA. Awesome. Thank you so much, Caio, for being with us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Coming up next, the Stop Asian Hate Movement and what you can do about it. Stay with us.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Oh boy.
Our back and forth. It always came back. You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
I love teaching at HCC. I love helping students.
With college credits.
With scholarships and financial aid.
Training them for life-changing careers.
Come learn with us. HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Acts of violence against Asians have made headlines recently. The Atlanta spa shootings left 8 people dead, including 6 Asian women. And in New York City, a 65-year-old woman was standing on a sidewalk in broad daylight in front of a luxury building. She was knocked to the ground and assaulted. What's causing this rise in violence, and what can you do about it? Our next guest is an immigration lawyer and a lifelong community activist. Debbie Chen is with OCA Houston, an organizer of a recent rally at Discovery Green to support Asians. Debbie, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So Debbie, what is causing this rise in violence? It's just awful against Asians.
It really is. And the sad thing is that, it's not something new. hate crimes and hate-based incidents against Asian Americans have been here since, literally the founding of America, since the Civil War. But what has really brought it to the forefront, I think, is the use of, essentially scapegoating Asian Americans and Chinese Americans by the former administration and by, aspiring politicians. We had a politician, here in the primaries last year who was running, these horrible ads on TV saying that the Chinese are here to poison us.
You're talking about the coronavirus and the Kung flu thing,
and literally scapegoating a community, right? Instead of looking at how do we address this worldwide pandemic.
And the incidents are increasing. A group called Stop AAPI Hate Research just recently issued a report saying 3,800 incidents reported in the past year against Asians and Asian Americans. That's a huge number.
A coalition of national organizations. OCA is one of those national organizations. There's 4 of us, actually. OCA, AJC, SALT, and the Stop AAPI hate crime site. There's 4 different sites. And so there's actually, and the ADL has also been tracking these. People report to different sites based on what they have heard of or, what they're more comfortable reporting to.
And most of these incidents, are they basically verbal harassment type things?
They span the whole gamut of verbal harassment to, physical violence. Right. There's over 4,400, if you combine all the sites together, but it's more than that report. And the sad part is that that's an undercounted report. Right. The vast majority of people don't report, don't know where to report, don't know how to report, or afraid to report, or think that, what is that going to do, right? Don't even necessarily report to, law enforcement because they don't know where to go, or they're like, what is that going to do? Or they're afraid to.
Right.
In Houston especially, we've been lucky so far, knock on wood, to not have huge numbers. But anecdotally, just listening to different people, we know that there are people who are educated and aware and know, but don't necessarily realize that it rises to a hate incident or that they, where to go and report it.
So people might think, why should I report it? Because nothing can be done about it anyway. The person's gone. I have no idea how to identify it. Why is it important to report these things,
exactly
Debbie?
it. And the main reason is because we want to have a documented record that these are happening to raise awareness, right? To raise awareness that, law enforcement needs to, be cognizant of it, for people to report it, especially for more egregious incidents, egregious violent, incidents, for, the authorities to actually prosecute people, to take this seriously, for people in the community to, not just Asians, but anyone, right? Many people are being targeted, on a daily basis, frankly, for, biased crimes known as, hate crimes, right? Crimes, these are criminal acts that are committed against people or property that are essentially motivated, by someone's race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender, disability, or national origin. And then, a hate incident is simply a non-criminal act that is motivated by those same, biases.
What if we're the target of something like this? What do we do? How do we escalate? Do we just walk away so we don't confront? Or like that grandma, I think she was in San Francisco, where she just picked something up and hit the guy, remember that? And said in Chinese, "Why are you doing this?" And she's like stood up for herself. What would you advise if someone's a victim?
Honestly, to avoid the confrontation as much as possible, right? Safety, is the primary thing. And we really encourage, people, this is why, documenting is important, right? We really encourage everyone to be an intervener, right? If you are witnessing something, and these are range from, a microaggression, from someone just making a snide comment, to someone, verbally harassing and yelling and screaming at somebody, to, physically pushing people or, hitting them, right? There are different levels of, intervention to de-escalate a situation, but even with the microaggression, speak up, right? And say, hey, that was uncalled for. Hey, that's not right. some people may not necessarily even realize that what they're saying is a microaggression, but it's important for people who are around the victims to speak up or to intervene in a safe way, right? So that that victim, doesn't feel alone.
I know that I would be scared to do that. Okay. If something's happening in front of me, I would be scared to say, hey, that's not right. For a variety of reasons, I'd be scared to. So how can do I just overcome that fear, or do I get somebody else involved, or what?
It really depends on the situation, right? And I would encourage everyone to take advantage of the free bystander trainings that are available right now in partnership with Houston Coalition Against Hate. So you can go to the website Houston Against Hate. There are monthly trainings being offered through September. And then starting in September, we are continuing situational awareness trainings that are being done by OCA to learn about the different ways to safely intervene, whether it's by you the individual or you with another person. A lot of times it's about distractions potentially. It's not necessarily a direct confrontation. You want to assess the situation and not escalate things, right? The whole idea is to de-escalate.
And these classes are being offered online and also in person.
Online, free. Available for free online. So again, I encourage you to go to HoustonAgainstHate.org, and in September look to OCA for bystander trainings and situational awareness trainings.
How can we address the root cause of this anti-Asian violence?
Violence against Asians and against all communities, I really believe stems from education, right? We need to address the way that we educate our children, whether it is about valuing each other as fellow human beings, to the history lessons and social study lessons that are available in schools, where the contributions and achievements of all communities should be included and taught, so that people intrinsically value each other as equal citizens in this country, or equal members of the society, I should say, as human beings. And that fundamentally goes back to education and respect for people.
So it should be taught at home and in the schools too, right?
Absolutely, right. And it starts with something as simple as bullying and microaggressions, or jokes at somebody else's expense, right? A lot of times, most people don't think of themselves as a racist. Right? Most people don't think of themselves as discriminatory. Most people, I genuinely believe, like to think that they are good people. And it's all these different internal subconscious biases that we hold that we really need to take a step to self-examine. And then the broader step societally is to really look at the histories that we are teaching in our schools. What's in our textbooks, right? Our history textbooks right now, you are lucky to have, maybe 3 sentences about the Chinese Americans helped build the Transcontinental Railroad, right? It doesn't say anything about how, that was a struggle, or it doesn't say anything about how, Chinese Americans have been here since the Civil War. We fought in the North. It doesn't talk about, our other contributions. It doesn't talk about, African Americans fully. It doesn't talk about Latin.
So the key, Debbie, is educate and learn to respect all groups and start at home with that. Thank you so much, Debbie Chen, for being with us. We appreciate it. That's all for this edition of Global Outlook. We'll see you again on HCC TV every Friday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. and p.m. plus Saturday at 10 a.m. Or you can go and download a podcast to go at hccs.edu/podcast, or watch the full video version on HCC's YouTube channel. I'm Mary Sitt. Thanks for joining us.